back to the SBL Week 3. I am AJS Hero, joined here by Iro Eugene Hibbs. And Hibbs, before we get into this, I gotta have one thing settled. How are we supposed to pronounce your name? Because I'm pretty sure Eugene is not correct.
No, Eugene, is a little off. Egwene or Egwene, but Egwene is how I've heard it.
So Egwene with emphasis on the
used to be
weenie
cool.
would also be incorrect. Good to know, folks. But Egwene is not playing in this game because we've got Ornhub versus Back in Our Day here. Ornhub coming in 1-1, Back in Our Day 2-0 off of that huge Clown Fiesta last week. But
Yeah, I'm looking forward to another Clown Fiesta. Hopefully, with the full lineup coming from Ornhub, we'll have a pretty competitive game here.
yeah, that's big. Both weeks they've had to play Dougie in the top lane, and they've had to kind of shuffle their roster around. And this is the roster we expected to see all season long. So I'm really excited to see these guys in action, going up against Back in Our Day, who have looked very good themselves. Both these teams should have some really good early game, which is perfect in this meta because this is a very early game centric game right now.
Absolutely. I think the key lane to watch right now is the bottom lane.
What's the worst
And they're
that
going to
could
ban away the
happen?
Jinx, actually, not looking to go up against it. I thought they'd leave it up.
No, I think there are too many SBL veterans on that team. But it does show just how difficult this draft phase is when you're going up against Back in Our Day. Every single player on that team really has like 2 picks that they're known for. As just realized here, Back in Our Day is playing with a substitute player. No Renai circulation this week. They've got Phoenix Blaze stepping in the mid lane. So the season of substitutions continues as Ornhub gonna first overall that Trundle, which Thor has been running in the jungle every week so far.
Yeah, Trundle has been his primary pick both in practice, solo queue, SBL, you name it. Last week not so successful, but the first week very, very much so. And he did get off to an early start last week, so unsurprising here that he picked that up. And also unsurprising to see the Ziggs come out for Phoenix Blaze. By far his best champion in the SBL historically.
Yeah, I think we all could have seen that pick coming, and it also makes sense with the other players on this team. Splinter wants somebody that can just sit there and hold down the fort mid lane, so we know what we're going to get out of Phoenix Blaze here. It'll be up to Sinister Beyblade to have something up his sleeve that can kind of screw with that. As the second pick for Back in Our Day is going to be Jarvan the fourth, a somewhat traditional Master Splinter pick. I would assume that's going to be going into the jungle. As I was going to say after the Trundle pick, maybe Back in Our Day is going to just answer by picking 5 non-tanks, and we are off to a good start.
Yeah, Jarvan, not how Splinter plays Jarvan, that's for sure. I have known Sinister Beyblade to, even though without his regular Katarina pick, he does like assassins, so I would be curious to see if he picks something kind of aggressive to go up against his Ziggs. We'll see if he saves it until the last rotation or if he picks it here. Yeah, that would be one. But I think that's going top lane for on the win, probably.
Yeah, it could be a flex at this point in the draft, getting it in the first set of picks. Obviously, on the wins all-time, pretty big Irelia player. He's been drawing that ban both of the last 2 weeks. So, taking it before it has the chance to get banned away again here, as it was a second rotation ban last week, I believe.
One thing on the win and Beyblade have to deal with this season again is just low champion pools. On the win hasn't practiced much. Beyblade is a one-trick player. So, not surprising that they pick up that Aurelia in the first rotation.
Yeah, but on the other side, we've got Scotch picking up the Zyra for the second week in a row here, and Back in Our Day, keeping the dream alive. They didn't run a tank last week, and it almost bit them in the ass. And if I had to put my money down on Mad Cow picking a tank in the top lane, I would be betting against that. So I think we might be seeing the 5 DPS comp again this week.
Not a problem.
So far, this champ select's kind of going kind of slow. They've been taking their time with these picks. So we've had a lot of time to talk. I'm just saying. They may be a little hesitant to make these picks. But yeah, Zyra is pretty good.
I could also see there being a lot of discussion with these bans. Like I said, both these teams have a lot of players that have some pretty long-term power picks. Stuff like On the Wind's been playing Irelia for 4 years now. Master Splinter has been playing Jarvan for a long time. Like, there's probably been a lot of debate about where the ban should go after each round of picks, but we
I do
see
not tolerate
bans targeted
cowardice.
at Sensory GG with Soraka and Blitzcrank going, and then back in our day going to lose access to Misfortune and Darius. So we'll see what Salvo has up his sleeve here, as this is the first time this season he's had to go off that Jinx, obviously. It's been pretty dominant, 6-3-14 last week, 7-2-5 the week before with that game-ending pentakill. And Salvo traditionally not been anywhere near as good once he's off that Jinx, as he's going to go to the Lucian here. Very different playstyle.
Lucian's a strong pick in the meta, but I don't see it as much of a salvo pick. He likes range, so I don't see the low range bursty Lucian being quite up his alley, but it's something he's played before, so I'm not hesitant on it, but we'll see. Xerath, that's going straight into Beyblade's hands. That's one of his fourth or fifth probably comfort mid laners. Kind of a weird comp coming out of Ornhub here, with the long range of Xerath combined with like the in-your-face engage of Aurelia, Trundle, and even Kai'Sa. I think they have not a very clear engage option. They're going to have to get ahead and split push if they want to go against a team with Zyra, Malphite, and Ziggs.
I really like that Malphite pick out of Dario Chop, man. Not going to let themselves get into the throwable position they were in last week with the 5 DPS comp. And just something that can get on top of that Sinister Beyblade Xerath could be huge as this game kind of comes down to the wire. And I agree. The team comp out of Ornhub, not super cohesive. I think back in our day kind of drafted them into a corner here.
I agree. I like back in our days draft way more. One of their weaker players, Phoenix Blaze, is on a champion that can follow up on the Malphite super easily with that ultimate. They have another Circle of Death with Zyra and a Jarvan to kind of cap it all off on this engage, and I just really like what they're doing. The Lulu Kai'Sa is a little slippery. They might be able to mitigate some of the engage, but once their flashes are down, I could really see him going down pretty quickly to the comp from back in our day.
Yeah, agreed. And Master Splinter here kind of has his setup for garden composition. Brand new homeowner, you go in, you build a home in the enemy territory, and then Zyra sets up the garden. Ziggs burns the garden down. Everyone in the garden dies. It's a nice and easy composition. And that's a perfect place when you're playing with a substitute player like they are. You want it to be like, hey, man, we're going to hit these AoE ults with 3 of the picks on our team. And then you just, chuck bombs on top of it. Easy stuff, man. You got that? And Phoenix Blaze can do that.
If there's anything that Master Splinter is used to doing, is used to playing with substitute level players. This season, he hasn't had to deal with anybody lower than that like mid to high gold level, and even everybody on his team has been well into plat. But he's played with a lot of players in his time in the SPL within that silver range. New players or weaker SPL players. Phoenix Blaze, is right up his alley. A solid low-level player that knows his job and is gonna execute on his goal here.
Yeah, and even specifically to this team, with Phoenix Blaze replacing Blabuer, Phoenix Blaze plays the game pretty similarly to how Blab plays. Blab's not playing mid lane super aggressively in the enemy face, trying to force the issue. He wants to sit back and farm and kind of scale up a bit. That's how Phoenix Blaze plays, just not quite as well. But it's a lot easier to substitute somebody in who plays the same style and champions. And, Brunei Circulation has already played the Ziggs once this season. So this is about as cohesive as a substitution as you're going to get.
Well, it does speak to the draft of back in our day being cohesive in general.
But before we make it sound like Ornhub didn't do anything right, we still have to give this team some credit. They have the Mighty Wolf on that team. Anything is possible, especially with Salvo off his familiar Jinx. We've seen Scotch have some hiccups in laning phase the past few weeks. Wolf and Sensory GG have the potential to be a super dominant lane here. Do you think this Kai'Sa Lulu has a chance to bully around at all?
Absolutely. I think Salvo, even though he's been historically a fantastic SBL player, I think he can get abused in lane a little bit if he gets behind early. Um, I think the Lucian is very hit or miss with how this is going to go. Although the Zyra provides a ton of pressure, which is going to be the saving grace, I think, for him here. But if Ornhub is going to win this, they're going to win it through the laning phase, and not necessarily through kills, but just through overall pressure. I see Malphite in the top lane having the pressure, but looking mid, there's no reason Beyblade shouldn't be able to chunk out the Ziggs and kind of push his lane up and maybe help bottom, which should be winning already with that Kai'Sa. The Mighty Wolf, since Kai'Sa's release, has played her constantly, is an expert on that champion already, knows what he's doing. I think we're going to see a lot of shoving in the mid and bot lane from Ornhub, and that really is their win condition because they can't get behind against this press R to win type team that Back in Our Day has put together.
Yeah, and in SBL terms, this is a $14 bot lane out of Ornhub here, going up against a 275 bot lane out of Scotch and Salvo. Just on paper, you would think that that lane should be a free win for Ornhub, and it really speaks to the reputation that Salvo has that we're really considering him being competitive in this lane. But Mighty Wolf has been very good both weeks so far, even in the loss last week. I am excited to see more of him in action. And on personal notes, I'm always excited about the opportunity to see Salvo get dumped on in a laning phase. Don't let me down, Mighty Wolf. You got the biggest fan in the world, AJS0 right here.
Yeah, I am not too familiar with the bottom lane anymore. I kind of dipped out of there as it got hot, you know. So I think Kai'Sa is somewhat of a lane bully to certain champions, but who's to say? I think the Lulu versus Zyra is a very skill dependent matchup. Zyra has a little bit more range, but Lulu can mitigate a lot of the damage. So I do think this is a true skill matchup in the bottom lane.
Well, that's how we like to see League of Legends break down. So I hope that you're right.
The flip side, there's no way Ornhub lets themselves get engaged on level 1. They're absolutely trash, no CC at all. In general, little CC on the team. They could easily get caught out by a Zyra or something. Although, to be fair, Back in Our Day doesn't really have much of a level 1 either, so they'll probably just stare at each other across the river and wait for laning phase to start.
Yeah, looking like traditional SBL right here. Neither team wants to find the other. As the most aggression we see is Dario Chopman moving up into this river bush here mid lane. As maybe he's going to just chuck a Q at Sinister Beyblade. No, he's going to just walk at him aggressively. As is tradition.
Yeah, it looks like both junglers looking to start kind of on the bottom side here. Very traditional start. Wonder if we'll see any level 2 shenanigans going for scuttlers or anything like that. We'll have to see what they're prioritizing in terms of early advantages.
Yeah, pretty wide open with how these junglers might want to gank. I get a feeling that if we don't see anything too cheesy into the bot lane early, we're going to see a good old-fashioned 2v2 up in the top lane at one of the earlier levels, but that's just a prediction.
I think Wind will need help, so that wouldn't surprise me if...
Do you really think that the Irelia does this poorly in the Malphite matchup?
I know it used to a lot before the changes, and I think it still is a counter matchup in favor of Malphite. So, and I think there's also a skill difference there as well. Being Dario Chopman, an excellent laner. Wind is not bad in his own right, but Brandon's kind of on another level in terms of the laning phase. At least compared.
This bot lane, early disaster here for Salvo and Scotch as they are getting completely chunked out now. Level 2 advantage for the Ornhub bot lane. They have already got these guys zoned pretty far back. As Salvo is under a lot of danger here. The Mighty Wolf flashing forward gets a heal out of Salvo.
Not so certain about that. He's probably wishing his support had taken Ignite this game.
Yeah, it's mid lane now. Slips the Beyblade. Losing trades early here. This is action-packed already.
The Phoenix Blaze effect is in full effect, I guess. Staying even with the player. Presumably should be much better than him, but hanging in there and even out-trading Sinister Beyblade. Very good on his part.
Yeah, God, Salvo playing with fire here, as Salvo is known to do. Neither jungler is around on this bottom side of the map, so he doesn't have to be worried about anything too unpredictable happening, but this is going to turn into a huge creep advantage for the Mighty Wolf.
Yeah, it absolutely is. This is kind of what I expected to happen. They have to kind of weather the storm here, hopefully not take too much damage to their turret, and get some help in the early levels. If they do so, this isn't the end of the world or anything, but definitely not good.
Salvo, he wants to follow up on that route, but he's going to just nearly die in the process. Finally has to commit to the recall, and if we have a chance here, which we might not, Thor is jungling pretty aggressively, but Phoenix Blaze isn't able to rotate. But this is not the first week where we've seen Scotch and Salvo lose a lane at level 1. Their laning phase is just... Now that I've seen it twice in 3 weeks, you know, it's not an accident. These guys just... It's atrocious. It's going to lose them games. As Master Splinter has to flash in his own jungle. The game is really starting to heat up fast, as Phoenix Blaze is also taking some good damage in his mid lane. He gets stunned, but nothing further from Beyblade.
A lot of trades going down early. This is a little bit more action-packed for a game that hasn't had anybody die in yet than you would expect.
It's translating to slight advantages across the board for Ornhub. We see CS leads in all 3 lanes. Obviously, a gigantic CS lead in that bot lane. As even when they're not trading, they're backing it efficiently. Scotch just finally getting his recall off, so it's going to be super late to join Salvo back in that bot lane.
Salvo has to go with the double Dorans to a little extra health, possibly just to survive the laning phase here. He's going to get a little behind on his early items, though, as Kai'Sa ramps up to that Jinsu's first item, which is a huge spike on her.
Yeah, and Salvo goes for the recall just to get boots and to not waste time in that lane, 1 versus 2.
Yeah, they're looking to build up another big wave here and take it into the turret. Thor, 74, also on the bottom side here. So if they did push up, it wouldn't be pretty for him.
Salvo must have screwed up that push because he just gifted a lane freeze over to Wolf and Sensory. And this could be pretty difficult to break.
I will say, I think On the Wind up here is doing a much better job than I thought he would. His laning phase so far has been very solid. I don't even think he's behind in CS, looking at that big wave coming in. If he picks it up off, picks it up off the turret, that is.
Which is pretty simple for Aurelius to do. So I would agree with you. I expect On the Wind to be even in that lane, as we maybe see some action in this bot lane. Both the junglers are there, and I don't think they realize the other is around.
Yeah, I think what actually happened is Salvo and Scotch might have gone to try to bait it a little bit, and then Thor saw them back up and thought maybe it was warded or something. So I think both bot lanes kind of had an eerie suspicion something was going on, but definitely neither was in a good position to really make a play, I don't think.
Yeah, and On the Wind actually takes the CS lead up in the top lane, but Salvo getting poked out bad. He has some health pots to chunk through, but this could be a disaster. If he gets forced to recall on his opponent's terms again, I mean, it would be hard to see Salvo just getting into this lane. Lucian is not a champ that can fall behind this early to this magnitude and still be efficient in the game.
No Lucian is ever like, don't worry guys, we got late game. It's more like we should surrender at 20 because I'm useless.
Yeah, which, I mean, maybe he can be the supportive player on this team. You know, there is plenty of ways. You know, he doesn't have to be the bot lane carry. We've seen Scotch already top damage for this team on Zyra. Maybe he'll have to do it again for this team to win. As a Master Splinter, though, showing up, forces a flash on his Sensory. And unfortunately for back at our day, they needed a lot more than that. Ornhub's gonna be very happy here. As now Thor showing up in the mid lane. Pillar interrupts the jump of Phoenix Blaze, has to blow his flash. Both summoners out of Phoenix Blaze there.
Couple early flashes to save themselves from getting first blooded. Definitely necessary in both instances. Although I think with those flashes down, we could see return ganks from the jungler. Although that
Oh,
doesn't.
here we go though. Teleport from on the wind coming into this bot lane. Thor coming out of the river as well. They are forcing this really aggressively. The flash forward gonna be flash for flash trade. Irelia and Scotch losing theirs. Back in our day, walk out of that one.
I think that's a pretty massive mistake from whoever called that. There's no way that was gonna work. Teleport is really low. He's got him.
Whoa! As soon as their Beyblade coming in with the snipe. And we finally get first blood. One of these lane skill matchups is bound to turn into a solo kill, and it's going to be the mid lane first. And his team immediately taking advantage of that, rotating over to this dragon, which should be completely uncontested.
This is a good response from Ornhub here. Of course, the solo kill in mid is great. Picking up dragon is good. Irelia will lose out on a little bit of pressure up in the top lane, and Malphite does scale very well into his tank items. So that's what I was talking about with possibly missing out on some gold and experience. On the Win does play for his team. So he's looking to set his team up to do well with that dragon, with possibly getting some pressure in that Zyra flash. So he's playing the team game, trying to get his fed ADC or strong ADC even stronger.
Yeah, I'm starting to think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Dio Chopman in this game to find the big ultimates, to be the game changer that Malphite can be, because his team is really going to need it here, and he has had as free of an early game as you can get.
I've known Dario Chapman for a long time, since before he was known as this only carry player, and I've always liked him on tanks when I've played with him in the past. So I think he is totally capable of finding that CC, finding that clutch play for the team, but hasn't really shown it much in the SBL yet. So we'll see with the slipperiness of Kai'Sa and the kiting of Lulu if he's able to make a huge difference in this game.
Yeah, and we'll see. You know, in week 1, he did play that Ornn, and it was very successful. We've seen periodic tank play from him in prior seasons. It's definitely something I would like to see more of, and something this team will probably need, is Scotch and Salvo are somehow winning a few trades down here in this bot lane.
They do a fuckload of damage. Holy shit. Lucian, that Lucian-Zyra combo. Both champions that do too much damage in this bot lane. The Mighty Wolf definitely feeling that as he gets chunked out. Just gross.
Yeah, we kind of saw the Ornn bot lane disrespecting the creep wave there, as there was a giant load of cast the creeps excited to blow all over Ornhub's face, as both of these junglers are showing up in the top lane. Dario Chapman playing aggressively, and Thor 74 is going to be the first to show, but here comes the big, oh, no, Dario Chapman flashes out. They looked very disjointed here, but flashes get blown from both sides.
Irelia is the only one that didn't start that fight with Flash. 2 others flashed to get out. Definitely a lot of staring at each other at the beginning of this game. Smart use of Flash. It's a close one. This is not swinging any way at all in the early game, despite some of those early trades coming out from the Mighty Wolf and Sensory. This is setting up for better team comp to come out strong, I think.
Yeah, this is turning into one of the most tense games we've had in the SBL so far this season. We've had a lot of very explosive, clowny early games. And we might actually see a tactical mid-game being played here for the first time. As Sensory, though, is just bullying the hell out of this back in our day bot lane. That should be recalls forced here, as Salvo is really playing with fire if he sticks around this lane, but it looks like he wants to farm this wave under his turret. And this could be the kind of greedy mistake that costs him.
Yeah, he's got heal up, so as long as he plays it pretty safe, he should be able to pick up most of these minions. That Lulu takes too many turret shots.
Ooh. Yeah, and that's going to make sure that this is a free wave for Salvo, as Kai'Sa was down checking out the river. So Salvo After falling behind about 30 CS early, hasn't really let that CS deficit get any bigger. So props to him and Scotch. They've done a really good job of turning this around after we spent the first 5 minutes of this game talking about how they had no idea how to play League of Legends.
Yeah, they've definitely shown up. That CS lead hasn't closed too much, but has stayed relatively the same. The difference that is. So, and with that extra wave there, Salvo's sitting pretty right now. He's behind, but hasn't lost it for his team.
Phoenix Blaze though has to pop his barrier, but he's committed to this fight. He's gonna die in this process though. A bad play out of Phoenix Blaze. And now Match Splitter has to flash forward onto Beyblade to trade kills. Gonna be a slight lead for Back in Our Day because they get assist gold, but still very suboptimal.
Yeah, Phoenix Blaze. Well, would you trade a death on Phoenix Blaze for a kill on Master Splinter?
You know,
I mean, we forget Master Splinter's on this team sometimes.
Yeah, when you put it that way, maybe it is worth it. Especially because you know as this game winds on, it's going to be all about making sure the Mighty Wolf dies. And you probably want Splinter to be fed to do that.
Yeah, this is going to be... everyone in this game is going to have to keep an eye on the Mighty Wolf's flash.
Oh, but Scotch being towered over this bot lane, he gets a fantastic knock-up with the Zyro, but it does not matter. It's a Mighty Wolf putting himself on the board. He has the Rage Blade, and he is raging out in this bot lane.
Yeah, that was a great dive. They got that tag onto the Zyra while she was alone. The Mighty Wolf easily able to follow up.
Yeah, but this fight not over yet as Salvo Lucian ulting aggressively. But I think that Ornhub are going to just walk out of this one as we see the full party showing up in this bot lane. Everyone looks like they want to hang around for a minute. Here's the mid laners are walking into each other. Phoenix Blaze gonna not get hit by too much of this Xerath there as now Master Splinter jumping in, jumping out. And once again, we see these fights totally disengaged.
I think we're going to see a little bit more of that until this Malphite and Aurelia get into the game. They provide a little bit more CC, a little bit more engage, especially in Malphite. In the meantime, we have, I mean, Trundle engage.
Oh, Salvo barely gets out with his summoners there.
Man, I told you he had that heal. He is all fine. He's perfectly calculated.
Yeah, Salvo very content to use that heal as in this top lane we see action, but in this bot lane we see more action as there's a solo kill in the top lane, but a bad fight for Back in Our Day in this bot lane as they're going to give up 1 for nothing.
Wind ended up dying, I guess.
Yeah, that was some of the worst directed camera. That happens sometimes, folks. But it turns into Ornhub taking this bot turret, and Dire Chopman is going to try to force down this top lane turret. I think he is going to be able to. So it's a turret trade, but first brick and a dragon going over to Ornhub. Across the board, a win for Ornhub there.
Blue team's turret
Yeah, absolutely. They have a slight gold lead here, but their actual power is much higher because that Kai'Sa is spiking hard right now. So despite the 2.4k gold lead they got going on right now, that Kai'Sa is super strong. So if they fight for anything, I think they have the advantage here.
Yeah, and the Xerath is getting pretty big himself. He's got the Luden's Echo complete. And I know we were talking about earlier about how, you know, Back in Our Day is going to want to just dive to Mighty Wolf at all costs. That's still going to be true, but Sinister Beyblade can hopefully take advantage of that pressure that the Mighty Wolf is drawing, because both of these carries are now big, and it's hard to dive 2 carries at once.
Oh, he's going to go for
the
this?
Mighty Wolf is going to easily get the Scotch blows this all, and it's not doing him any good.
The Assassin ADC is in full swing now. Got the Jinsus plus the Stinger, and another Amp Tome for good measure for the, you know, the attack damage carry. This is looking good. That Xerath is going to be able to poke down. You would hope be able to poke down some of the engage coming out from Back in Our Day. So hopefully not. Oh, he's going.
Nice, getting caught out. Gonna be Lulu ultimate, but here comes the Zags. Malphite with the shutdown damage.
Just as I say that, they show why their comp is strong too. Lock him down and throw that Zigzalt down. That is hard to deal with.
Yeah, and they still have big Jarvan ult available. They are pressuring here under this turret. They're going to have great poke with the Ziggs and the Zyra here that can easily turn into a turret dive as they chunk about half the damage on this tower, but On the Wind is prepping in this bot lane.
That and the Xerath wave clear really kind of deter any extra pushing coming out from back in our day. Xerath is a real cock block to pushing down and ending the game.
Yeah, but On the Wind's maybe in no man's land here. No, just kidding. No, just kidding. No, just kidding. On the Wind ultimately flashes out of that one.
They would have waited 10 seconds. Master Splinter would have had his flash too, and then what? Where would it have ended?
I don't know, man. We'll have to wait till the next engage to find out. Or we'll have to wait 3.5 minutes to find out for On the Wind to get that flash back up. But I hope these guys can run it back around the no objective river sometime. As we see a lot of bodies making their way over towards the mid lane. It is that time of the day, I think.
Yeah, not a real, it's just what I was saying, not a real big gold lead, but definitely the top side of the map versus the bottom side and mid lane. The $14 top jungle versus the $14 bottom lane on either teams. We're going to see a little bit of push and pull here. Is really the Malphite tries to scale up to stop that Kai'Sa. Did see earlier Kai'Sa went and damaged the Malphite just a little bit, and it barely did anything to him with that Sunfire cape. So I do think there's a good chance that the back in our day is going to outscale here with their comp.
Yeah, as Scotch forced to flash, doesn't make it over the wall, even pops the ult very defensively there. Scotch is honestly looking pretty shook up right now.
He's scared. That last assassination has him definitely nervous, but now he doesn't have flash anymore, so he could possibly go down in the next one.
Yeah, here we go. Xerath chucking bombs from downtown, forces a barrier out of Phoenix plays there. As Dario Trapman gonna hold this tower 1v2. Look at that! The Malphite does not take damage right now.
He's what he's built for, and Kai'Sa will struggle to kill him, but Kai'Sa also has the tools to get to his backline and just kind of ignore him. So it's gonna be hard for her to deal any damage to the tanks.
Yeah, but in a lot of these long-term engagements, we have seen the Ornhub members are getting poked out. It feels like they've rarely been able to keep all 5 members of the team on the map at the same time, as Ornhub is currently pressuring in all 3 lanes. On the Winds drew some pressure to the bot lane before he goes for a recall here, but now Salvo may be the one in danger, as a lot of members are diving deep between these turrets, Floyd with the flash auto to finish things off.
Yeah, Salvo holds his heel there.
Yeah,
Beyblade.
Maybe not over, as now Beyblade forced the flash out of Demacia. And we see Dario Trapman teleporting to the top lane. It looks like back in our day want to fight this one, but I don't know if that
Do they know they're missing their ADC?
Yeah, that was a bad teleport. It's just straight up. Maybe they thought that Ornhub was going to be diving deep, and that was a defensive teleport, but it was still seemed kind of early for that.
Yeah, the strengths and weaknesses of these teams definitely showing here. But the strength of back in our day will be that kind of late game team fight, and if they can pull off a little bit of a wombo combo. So we haven't seen their full potential yet. Whereas Ornhub, early game prowess with the poke and with the bot lane pressure, and with that 70 CS lead, 80 CS lead coming out of the bottom lane, they're definitely strong right now and looking to make plays happen now. Because if they wait too long, they will be in trouble, I think.
That is a 3,500 gold lead on the Mighty Wolf at 22 minutes. I know we've been talking about the bot lane all game, but that is just so much of the time. That is game over in League of Legends. And it has felt like it is a quiet lead. Like, we see it really obviously when it's the Mighty Wolf in these one-on-one situations, but in the team game, it doesn't feel like Ornhub has the lead that they have.
Well, it's because they're complex teeth, basically.
Yeah, now here we go. The Xerath, the first one cut out, forces all the Lulu defense, and it's still not enough. Salvo with the kill. The Master forces a bunch of flashes defensively. This fight has been split up in big favor of Back in Our Day, but they have still lost 2 in the process. However, their carries are still alive. A 2 for 2, and it's going to be disengaged. A super awkward team fight that these guys are posturing loud, like they still want to engage. But Century GG, what are you doing? Cast to blow his exhaust, and Dario Chopman, the mountain, zoning everyone back towards their base from Ornhub. As now it's maybe the Mighty Wolf in some danger here. Salvo dashing forward, putting that Blazing Rune King damage on. Dario Chopman wants to go, but the Kaisa just barely gets out alive.
There was a lot of action for a 2 for 2.
Yeah, that was a second team fight, essentially, where nothing happens. As now, though, Thor going forward, they've already lost the turret, but they're maybe going to be able to equalize some kills. Here's Anduin teleported in! I missed the teleport! Anduin gets the easy kill onto Salvo's Lucian.
That is absolutely the on-the-win factor right there. May not kill his lane. He may not have the biggest champion pool, but that map awareness to teleport in and pick up the easy kill on Salvo, winning them a dragon in the process, is definitely got on the win written all over it. That's why he is way better than his price tag.
Yeah, on the win there. Great play on spawn. And now he goes up, gets every top laner's favorite reward, the giant creep wave.
Yeah, it feels so good on Aurelia when you just mash Q over and over again as you kill everything in the wave.
Yeah, man, that is some lewd stuff for a family-friendly stream like Swain BL. And I love it. As fortunately for Back in Our Day, they're at this 3 dragon deficit, but not the worst 3 dragon deficit you can see, as it's one of everything but the fire.
Yeah, they've pretty much just gotten the dragons because they could at this point. They, Back in Our Day, didn't put a whole lot of pressure onto Ornhub, as they've only taken 2 turrets. Well, 2 turrets to 3, so that's... But still, you can tell with the CS leads in top and bot that there really hasn't been a whole lot of pushing going on out of Back in Our Day. They're biding their time waiting for that team fight, but it may never come if played correctly.
Yeah, so geez, Scott gets caught out yet again. 1-5-0 on the Zyra. This is when people talk about why Zyra doesn't always work, this is the worst case scenario.
This is like this is the reason why Zyra isn't picked in a lot of competitive environments unless she's really strong, because it's just a squishy champion with very little utility, like hard utility anyway. That ult is very good, but not if you don't get the opportunity to use it because you die so quickly.
Yeah, and this is looking like maybe some of you remember the Season 3 meta where every team had support Zyra just getting insta-give by Faker. But we've got you the batting equivalent to the Faker, and that's the Mighty Wolf here. Taking advantage. Every time he sees Scotch on the map doing anything, goes in there, picks up a solo kill. Or essentially a solo kill. Gold lead up to 5,000 in favor of Ornhub, but like I said, they really got to find a way to crack things open, although they are kind of splitting things here. Some nice damage to Bosnia, going to trap 2, pushes Thor to flash out, but it is still a 1-for-1 there, no matter how good. But no, there we go, the Malphite jumps in, they take out the Kaisa, and now Back in Our Day may finally have a chance to pressure.
Yeah, that was a good situation for them. They got some of the movement abilities out of the Kaisa. No flash either. Able to really get nuked by Dario Chopman in that Malphite with the Malphite combo.
Yeah, Dario Chopman is playing so well this game. But this is still a really hard siege. There is essentially no help on Salvo, and now Mr. Beyblade trying to hold things off with the Xerath ult from downtown, but he doesn't have a lot of vision here. Not able to land any killing snipes here.
Yeah, it's really hard to take towers into Ornhub. Xerath, without Baron, the Xerath just crushes these minions, can delete pretty much a whole minion wave with one ability. So it's hard to take stuff while he's up. Beyblade is playing smart to stay as far back as he is.
Yeah, and Salvo was walking into that situation at a third of his health as well, so he just could not get near that turret without risking his life. So really, the only damage being put down on that turret was Dario Chopman walking up as, ooh, Pornhub wants to get aggressive and they want to start this Baron. Chopman and Swear are in the neighborhood though. On the Wind does not have a teleport in the bot lane. This could be big. Master Splinter's there. Master Splinter does not get inside. Baron secured, but at what cost? The Zigzag comes in, only taps one. On the Wind, the teleport must not have been timed here because back in our day does not engage us in a 5v4. And it is a huge steal from Pornhub.
Kai'Sa, I don't know if you know this, but Kai'Sa absolutely destroys Baron. Just annihilates that thing. Tons of single target damage. That's why they were able to kind of even like sneak it a little bit just with 3 people. And Master Splinter didn't feel like he was confident enough or had enough people there to try to go in for the steal. Kind of just watches it get taken there.
Yeah, rough stuff, and now after a lot of posturing around, we finally see Ornhub crack the space a bit. They take 2 towers as soon as they get that Baron. They now are really in full control here. Is On the Wind going to rotate up to the top lane. They're going to play this clean, try to get the 6 towers before they break the base open. That teleport is back available if something breaks out. As we're seeing great poke here, Scotch has to flash to just 2 moves landing from downtown from Sinister Beyblade. As Scotch, go back to your fountain. Nope. Kai'Sa with the kill. Scotch's nightmare continues as now the inhibitor turret is down, and this game that was so close for so long is finally broken apart. Salvo barely makes out alive, but everyone from back in our day is flashing defensively. An Malphite ult does not accomplish anything as Pornhub is diving this forward. Kai'Sa, Irelia just shredding through back in our day, and in the blink of an eye, this game has gone from a dance to over. Pornhub
0 to
take the
60.
win.
Holy shit, they took over the game so fast there.
Wow. I'm like in shock of how that game just winded down.
Well, it was what we were talking about. We were talking about a kind of a little bit of a CS lead or a lead for a while, 3K to 4K. We knew they had to turn it on at some point, but with that Baron, they were able to find a couple picks and just, you know, they smelled blood and just ran it down mid.
Yeah, props to them for that Baron. A lot of great play across the board to bail out that bad composition for Ornhub. Is there anyone in mind you'd like to bring in here for the interview?
I would like to bring it On the Wind.
That's exactly who I was thinking. God bless. On the Wind's my dude. Check in with him real fast if he is around. I see the man in Twitch chat.
There he is. He's
There
coming.
we go. All right. You know, I'm always down to bring top laners in for just about any reason.
Buddy joined your
And
channel.
there's the man, the legend, On the Winds, coming off a solid enough Irelia game, I guess would be a good way to describe that.
All right, before you ask me any questions, I have a question for you. Why the fuck am I in this booth right now?
Because the Mighty Wolf gets interviewed every other time you win. We gotta take a break sometimes.
That seems reasonable, I guess.
We could do something fun. Do you want to do something weird?
Oh yeah, great. Let's do it.
All right, we're gonna pretend to be the Mighty Wolf. We're gonna ask you some questions.
Oh, okay, great.
All right, so how do you feel about the fact that Salvo and Scotch lost that lane at level 1?
Oh, I mean, like, I didn't really expect anyone to have a good bot lane this season. Like, I got my man Sensory GG, and he just presses R, and then I don't die.
I got a question. Can you carry me to Diamond again this season, please?
It depends. Are you gonna buy me a skin if I get you there?
Yes.
All right, cool, sold.
That's all it takes.
All right, so we could probably ask you about all those picks where you find Scotch and Scotch dies over and over, but we can let the man just be dead at this point, I think. I would much rather talk about some of the shot calling. You
Yeah, sure.
guys, for the most part, looked pretty coordinated. There was one really bad teleport play in the bot lane that didn't quite work out.
That
But
was rather unfortunate, yeah. They like pushed up a little bit. They turned back like immediately, which was kind of sad. Usually they stay for like one more auto attack, and then my E just slightly missed Scotch. It ended up being okay because we got Dragon out of the deal. I ended up getting a bit behind top lane, so I just kind of played passive for the rest of laning phase. But after that, like most of our shot calling is it's between Thor and then every once in a while like Wolf or something will like just come up with a suggestion or say it, but Thor is definitely our primary shot caller.
Uh, I do have to ask, what is kind of the process going to this team comp here? I did notice that there was a little bit of a lack of CC. That's not necessarily a problem because you got really far ahead early. Uh, but are you thinking about like team comps as a whole? Are we trying to get like strong lane picks? What's the kind of thought behind some of these strategies?
So I mean, a lot of our picks are just kind of stuff that's worked well in the past. Like Thor on the Trundle can just kind of shred the tanks, and then we can usually just count on Wolf kind of carrying us through team fights. As we saw this draft going on, we saw that like their team was definitely just like going for the Wombo combo. So we didn't just want to like play that game, so we tried to get more pick type stuff, which is why we put Beyblade onto the Xerath rather than an assassin or something like that. Irelia is also just like a fine split pusher, which is kind of what you saw that game. Like
Yeah,
they got kind of a stranglehold
how does
where they
Aurelia
could.
do into sorry to interrupt you. How does Aurelia do
Oh no,
into
go for it.
Malphite in the new Aurelia
I don't
phase?
fucking know, dude. I've played like 14 games on this champion.
I'm asking for me too. Like, how
Oh, I
how
mean
does this
it's pretty
work?
even. It depends on if he gets ahead or not. I just kind of played passive though. We just farmed back and forth, and I just messed up once in lane. But that was about it.
All right.
you guys, this was the first week you got to play with your full starting roster. It's it's a win. A win is a win against a 2-0 team that has looked pretty dominant in the laning phase, especially these first 2 weeks. Uh, at this point, you guys are 2-1. What are the expectations going forward with this full lineup?
Probably 7-0.
All right, can't argue with that. Thanks for the interwolf. Thanks for the
Oh,
interview. It's
see,
a mighty wolf and on the wins.
see, look how good my cosplay was.
All right, so that's gonna do it, guys. We will be back in just a few minutes here with a much lower quality game. We got team table for 4 up against Baddy Broke Boys in the last place bowl. So stay tuned.